Apparently, there was a sizable demonstration in Glasgow in the last few days. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, for Scottish independence. Um, I'm saying sizable. I'm not putting any figure out there as such because there's no agreement on exactly the numbers that were involved. Organisers claimed there were 91,000. The police expected 40,000. And unionist groups are obviously saying it was far less than that. Looking at the photographs, I would guess probably, I don't know, a maximum I would say 10,000, but possibly it wasn't even that many. Definitely, I think 91,000 is a huge exaggeration, bearing in mind that Glasgow is a city of a population of around 600,000. It's declined in population. So if you believe their account, the nationalist account, that's almost a sixth of the entire city of Glasgow, or the equivalent of, out in demonstration, and I find that very hard to believe. Regardless, the point is there is a nationalist contingent out there that is hell-bent, hell-bent on continuing this agenda. I've never hid from my views on this. I've never tried to gloss over my very strong views. I hate Scottish nationalism. I hate the division. I hate the anti-UK rhetoric that it constantly spurns out. So really, it's a very obvious these people aren't going to be happy until they get exactly what they want, which is Scottish independence. Now they resent being called separatists, but let's break that down a bit. Separate is a verb to divide something, to separate from something. So Scottish independence, by definition, means the separation of England and Scotland, therefore the United Kingdom. It's not That's not a smear. It's just an adjective. It's a fact. You cannot say that you support Scottish independence, but you are not therefore in favour of the breakup of the United Kingdom. One is the other. It's the same thing. So that's why I charge that Scottish nationalists are by definition anti-UK. It's not smear. It's That's just by definition. It's like you either like Marmite or you don't. If you are pro-Scottish independence, by definition you are anti-UK because that's what it means. That's what the independence of Scotland would mean. So it's not smear. It's just it's just what it is. Um, I try to avoid this sort of news because it depresses me and frustrates me and saddens me. It saddens me that there are people out there so consumed by their contempt for this country that their whole existence is about trying to push for independence. I think if another referendum happens, and Nicola Sturgeon has sent out mixed messages on this, she suggested that there would be one later this year. God forbid, but I don't think it will go ahead. What they would have to do is unilaterally declare independence, which wouldn't go down well because, firstly, they'd need to get the consent of the people of Scotland for that. Um, they'd have to unilaterally declare it because the British government would not agree to another independence referendum. I don't think they should, coming 4 years after the last one, after that supposedly once in a lifetime referendum that both Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon indicated at that time. Um, Polls have consistently shown that most Scots don't want another referendum. Even Scots who favour independence don't want one right now. So clearly, it's not wanted. I won't deny there is a hardcore of nationalists who they live for this. It's the only thing they care about, and I find that very sad. To be honest, the 2010s has been a remarkably turbulent decade for the United Kingdom. We've had three general elections. We've had the now at least two divisive referendums. Well, three if you include the AV referendum. And I just want the dust to settle. But Scottish nationalists, They will not be content until they get their way, and their way is the breakup of the UK. So unfortunately, these bitter feelings are going to continue. And as to my own feelings on the matter, I think Scottish nationalists have this idea that they have a monopoly on passion, that they have a monopoly on sentiment. They don't. I'm not going to be passive when the very existence of my country is being threatened. And I can't think of any other great power, any of the other major powers in the world that would just stand by and watch, one of their regions or internal nations. Scotland is a nation within the UK. That's its status. I can't think of any other great power which would just stand by and watch that happen. So I don't know why the nationalists are surprised that unionists don't like this. Um, I think it makes them sore losers because they're making it clear that they don't accept the results of 2014. But they keep throwing out the thing about the EU referendum. Well, an issue I take with that, and some unionists I have to say are guilty of this as well, is automatically associating the vote to remain in the EU with um, being, uh, tying that to being pro-independence. I'm sure there are Scots who voted for the United Kingdom in 2014 and voted to stay in the EU in 2016. I voted to remain in the EU, and I'm a passionate unionist within the UK context, as are many people in this country. So I think it's misleading to automatically equate the Yes campaign in in the independence referendum with the Remain campaign in the EU referendum. There may be some correlation, but I think it's misleading, and the Nationalists have been doing that ever since the EU referendum. But as some unions have pointed out, and I think this is a fair point, when you think about it, the Nationalists are saying we demand to stay in one union while simultaneously demanding to leave another. So they want to leave the 300-year-old United Kingdom to stay in the 44-year-old European Union. I mean, 44 years since the UK joined, 45. So there's clear irony in that. Um, just a few practical things, a few noticeable things. I've been very vocal on what I do perceive as a deep intolerance that nationals have shown. I've come across graffiti on the internet that basically says vote yes or you will get it. And there's a lot of examples of this sort of language and behavior. Now, I'm not saying that every single nationalist behaves this way, but without question, there is an ugly undercurrent within Scottish nationalism. They insist they're not anti English. There's blatant anti English sentiments within. Um, I know not every Scottish nationalist hates the English. I get that, but there is sectarianism within Scottish nationalism as a movement. There is, and they have created a deeply hostile environment in Scotland where any Scot who shows any affection to the UK is automatically deemed to be a traitor. And what the SNP are doing is spending a lot of money on changing road signs to Gaelic. They're trying to gradually but surely remove all references to the UK or British within Scotland. It's sort of a cultural cleansing, and it's actually quite disturbing. I do believe that Scotland has become a more intolerant place than before the referendum. That's my gut feeling. Now, as a unionist, I will acknowledge that there are some extreme elements within the unionist side. There are certain elements I don't have much time for, hooligan-esque types, blood and soil nationalists like white supremacists, etc. I will always denounce such people. And if the nationalist says to me, "Oh, look at this unionist group who are, you know, white supremacists or whatever," I will denounce them without caveat. I don't want anything to do with those sort of people. I am widely travelled. I have friends from all backgrounds. Um, I have no interest in blood and soil nationalism, but I make no apology for passionately believing in this United Kingdom, and I am sick and tired of the nationalists thinking they can hold the UK to ransom, which is what they're basically doing. They're saying, unless we get our way, which is the breakup of the UK, we're going to keep demanding these independence referendums. They'll have to declare unilateral independence. It won't work because no other country in the world would accept it. And maybe Catalonia will, but um, it just wouldn't happen. So that would be Nicola Sturgeon's only choice. And that would be a huge gamble for her politically. So from that point of view, I'm optimistic. I think it's practically difficult for them to call another referendum, especially just 4 years after the last one. But I am sick of it. I am sick of this anti-British agenda. They say they're not anti-English. Maybe not, but they're definitely anti-UK. That's absolutely irrefutable. Scottish nationalism, by definition, is anti-UK. I don't see how anyone could rationally claim otherwise. It's just so sad that we have a situation where part of this country, part of this island, there are people who are so consumed by their bitter feelings towards the Union flag that they seem to live for another damn referendum. Indy 2, Indy 3, you know, when are they going to give it a rest? I'm just, I'm drained of it. I'm sick of it.